USCGC Taney is a United States Coast Guard high-endurance cutter, notable as the last ship floating that fought in the attack on Pearl Harbor, although Taney was actually moored in nearby Honolulu Harbor, not Pearl Harbor itself. She was named for Roger B.Taney, who was at various times U.S. Attorney General, Secretary of the Treasury, and Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. She is also one of two Treasury-class Coast Guard cutters still afloat, serving her country for 50 years. The Taney saw action in both theaters of combat in World War II, serving as command ship at the Battle of Okinawa, and as part of fleet escort in the Atlantic and Mediterranean. She also served in the Vietnam War in Operation Market Time. Taney also patrolled the seas working in drug interdiction and fisheries protection and participated in the search for Amelia Earhart, 1936–41. Roger B.Taney, Coast Guard builders No. 68, was laid on 1 May 1935 at the Philadelphia Navy Yard. She was launched on 3 June 1936 and was sponsored by Miss Corinne F. Taney. She was commissioned at Philadelphia on 24 October 1936 under the command of CDRW K. Thompson, USCG. The Roger B. Taney departed Philadelphia on 19 December, transited the Panama Canal from 27 to 29 December, and arrived at her home port, Honolulu, Territory of Hawaii, on 18 January 1937. She conducted local operations out of Honolulu through the summer of 1937. On 16 June 1937, she transferred a number of her crew for temporary duty to USCGC Itasca. The Itasca was preparing to lend navigational support to Amelia Earhart's flight around the world. In May–June 1937, Roger B. Taney's name was shortened to simply Taney. The Taney had arrived in the Pacific at a time when the United States, and Pan American Airways in particular, was expanding its commercial air travel capabilities. The Clipper flights across the Pacific to the Far East made islands like Hawaii, Midway, Guam, and Wake Island important way stations. Other islands and islets assumed greater importance when a route across the South Pacific was mapped out to Australia and Samoa. The military benefits which accrued to the United States by its expansion onto some of the more strategic bits of land in the broad Pacific were not lost upon President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who undertook, in the late 1930s, to annex territory in the Pacific. Two such places were Canton and Enderbury Islands. The Taney played a role in their colonization by the United States. In early March 1938, the Coast Guard cutter loaded supplies and embarked colonists who would establish the claim of the United States upon the two islands that seemed, at least to the uninitiated, to be mere hunks of coral, rock, and scrub in the Central Pacific. She disembarked 4 Hawaiians at Enderbury Island on 6 March 1938 and landed a second contingent of 7 colonists at Canton Island on the next day. The men, assisted by the Coast Guardsmen, erected buildings and laid the foundations for future signal towers. The Coast Guard's task over the ensuing years leading up to the outbreak of war in the Pacific was to supply these isolated way stations along the trans-Pacific air routes and to relieve the colonists at stated intervals. Taney performed these supply missions into 1940. Meanwhile, tension continued to rise in the Far East as Japan cast covetous glances at the American, British, Dutch, and French colonial possessions and marched deeper into embattled China, as the Navy and Coast Guard began gradually increasing and augmenting the armament on its vessels to prepare them for the inexorably advancing war. Taney underwent her first major rearmament at the Pearl Harbor Navy Yard in December 1940. She received her last major pre-war refit at the Mare Island Navy Yard, Vallejo, California, in the spring of the following year, 1941. On the 25th of July 1941, the Coast Guard cutter was transferred to the Navy and reported for duty with the local defense forces of the 14th Naval District, maintaining her base at Honolulu. Outside another Line Island cruise in the late summer, Taney operated locally out of Honolulu into the critical fall of 1941. She conducted regular harbor entrance and channel patrols, alternating often with one of the four old destroyers of Destroyer Division 80, Untitled and Ward. World War II. The message, Air Raid, Pearl Harbor. This is no drill, came at 7:55 on the 7th of December as Japanese planes swept overhead in an attempt to cripple the Pacific Fleet. Taney, moored alongside Pier 6, Honolulu Harbor, manned her anti-aircraft guns swiftly when word of the surprise attack reached her simultaneously. No Japanese attacks were directed at Honolulu Harbor. The Coast Guard cutter was only given the opportunity to fire at stray aircraft which happened to venture into her vicinity. She was firing upon unidentified aircraft as late as noon, indicating that the eager Coast Guardsmen were probably shooting at American planes, not Japanese. Coast Guardsmen from the Taney were ordered to take up defensive positions around Aloha Tower and protect it from being occupied. Taney patrolled the waters off Honolulu for the remainder of 1941 and into 1942, conducting many depth-charge attacks on suspected submarines in the wake of the Pearl Harbor attack. During this time, the ship received the classification WHEC-37. On the 22nd of January 1942, the cutter departed Honolulu in company with USAT Barbara Olson, and arrived at Canton Island on the 28th of January. After sending a working party ashore to unload supplies, Taney screened Barbara Olson offshore until the 7th of February, when both ships got underway to evacuate the American colony on Enderbury Island, embarking the four colonists at 10:15 that day. Taney shelled the island and destroyed its buildings to prevent them from being used by Japanese forces. Taney subsequently escorted her merchantman consort to Jarvis Island, where she evacuated the four Interior Department colonists and burned all structures to the ground before departing. Reaching Palmyra Atoll on the 12th of February, the ships remained there until the 15th of February, before Taney headed back for the Hawaiian Islands. Arriving at Honolulu on the 5th of March, she made another voyage to Palmyra Island later that spring, and when heading back to Hawaii, she received orders to search for survivors in the waters around Midway Island after the Battle of Midway, including a stop at the island itself. Taney operated locally out of Honolulu into 1943 before sailing for Boston late that winter. Prior to heading for the East Coast, the ship received a regunning at Mare Island, being fitted with four single-mount, 5-inch guns, making her the only ship in her class with this modification. After making port at Boston on the 14th of March 1944, Taney soon shifted south to Hampton Roads, where she arrived on the 31st of March. Early in April, she departed Norfolk as a unit of Task Force 66 as convoy guide for convoy USCGC-38. The passage across the Atlantic proved uneventful, as the convoy made landfall off the Azores on the 13th of April, some 35 minutes after sunset on the 20th of April. However, the convoy was spotted and tracked by the Germans, who launched a three-pronged attack with Junkers Ju-88 and Heinkel He-111 medium bombers. Each flew very low, using the shoreline as a background, thus confusing the search radar of the Allied ships. The first wave struck from dead ahead, torpedoing SS Paul Hamilton and SS Samite. The former, which had been carrying both a load of ammunition and hundreds of Army Air Force personnel, blew up in a shattering explosion, killing all 504 men on board. The second wave of German torpedo planes hit the SS Stephen F. Austin and SS Royal Star. During this melee, 2 torpedoes churned past Taney close aboard. The third wave mortally wounded US Lansdale, which later sank. All of the damaged vessels, save Paul Hamilton and Lansdale, reached Bizerte, Tunisia, on the 21st of April. Taney later departed Bizerte with homeward-bound convoy US-38 and arrived at New York on the 21st of May. Taney participated in 2 more round-trip convoy escort-in missions, with convoys USCGC 45 and USCGC 52. Detached as a unit of TF-66 on 9 October 1944. She sailed for the Boston Navy Yard soon thereafter for extensive yard work to convert her to an amphibious command ship. During this metamorphosis, Taney, classified as WHEC-37, was fitted with accommodations for an embarked flag officer and his staff, as well as with increased communications and radar facilities. Her main battery also underwent change. She now sported 2 open-mount 5-inch guns, as well as 40 and 20 mm anti-aircraft guns. With the work completed in early January 1945, Taney departed Boston on the 19th of January, bound for Norfolk, Virginia. She conducted shakedown and training in her new configuration before departing the East Coast and sailing via the Panama Canal and San Diego to Hawaii, arriving at Pearl Harbor on the 22nd of February 1945. She soon embarked Rear Admiral Calvin H. Cobb and later underwent various minor repairs. New communications equipment was also installed before the ship departed the Hawaiian Islands for the Marshalls on the 10th of March. Taney proceeded independently via Eniwetok and arrived at Ulithi on the 23rd of March, remaining there until the 7th of April. Joining Task Group 51.8, the amphibious command ship proceeded to Okinawa and arrived off the Hagushi beaches amidst air raid alerts on the 11th of April. During one raid, her anti-aircraft gunners scored at least 3 hits on a Mitsubishi G4M Betty bomber which crossed the ship's bow 1,200 yards away, and later during her first day at Okinawa experienced 4 more red alerts. The ship briefly shifted to Karamoretta from 13 to the 15th of April before returning to Hagushi on the latter date. By the end of May, Taney had gone to General Quarters 119 times, with the crew remaining at battle stations for up to 9 hours at a stretch. During this period off Okinawa in April and May, Taney downed 4 suicide planes and assisted in numerous other kills. The command ship also conducted combat information center duties, maintaining complete radar and air coverage, receiving and evaluating information on both friendly and enemy activities. On one occasion, Taney's duties took her close inshore, close enough to even receive fire close aboard from a Japanese shore battery. Suicide air attacks by the Japanese continued throughout June, although most were intercepted by combat air patrol fighters and downed before they could reach the targets. Such raids took place on 18 out of 30 days that month. On the 25th of June at 1:20, a float seaplane passed near Taney, provoking return fire from the command ship and batteries ashore which combined to splash the intruder. During this month-long period, at least 288 enemy planes attacked the ships in Taney's vicinity, and at least 96 of these were destroyed. As if the Japanese menace alone were not enough, in mid-July a typhoon forced the ships at Hagushi to take evasive action. Taney led a convoy eastward on the 19th of July and returned the next day when the storm passed. She performed the same duties again on the 1st of August when she led a convoy to sea on typhoon evasion operations. The ship returned to its anchorage on the 3rd of August. The end of the war found Taney still off Okinawa. On the 16th of August, she got underway to support us Pennsylvania as 3 Japanese planes were detected approaching from the northeast. One crashed 30 miles to the north, and 2 splashed into the sea shortly thereafter. On the 25th of August, TG 95.5 was dissolved, and Rear Admiral Cobb, who had been embarked during the Okinawa campaign, hauled down his flag and departed. Taney soon proceeded to Japan, where she took part in the occupation of Wakayama, anchoring off the port city on the 11th of September and sending a working party ashore the next day. While anchored there, Taney weathered a typhoon on the 17th of September. She was, in fact, one of the few ships which stayed at her berth during the storm, her ground tackle holding well in the sticky clay bottom. Departing Wakayama on the 14th of October, Taney returned to the west coast of the United States, via Midway, and arrived at San Francisco on the 29th of October. Moving on for the East Coast, Taney transited the Panama Canal and later arrived at her ultimate destination, Charleston, South Carolina, on the 29th of November. During the ensuing period of conversion, the Coast Guard vessel was reconfigured as a patrol cutter. She now sported a main battery of a single-mount, 5-inch gun, a Hedgehog, a twin 40mm mount, and 2 20mm guns, in addition to depth-charge tracks and projectors, and was reclassified once again as WHEC-37, 1946-61. Upon shifting back to the West Coast, Taney was based at Alameda, California until February 1972. Her primary post-war duty was serving as an ocean station weather ship. The weather patrols consisted of sailing for 3 weeks on assigned stations in the Pacific, and each cutter assigned performed 4 or 5 such patrols each year. The primary task was to report meteorological information, which was used in weather forecasts for the burgeoning trans-Pacific commercial air traffic as well as for surface vessels. The ocean station vessels also provided communications and navigation assistance and were always standing by for search and rescue emergencies. She also conducted dedicated law enforcement and search and rescue patrols, or stood on search and rescue standby, when she was not on ocean station duty. In June through July 1949, Taney served on Ocean Station Fox, and later in July she served on Ocean Station Able. In June 1950 she served on Ocean Station Obo, and in September she served on Ocean Station Fox. In January through February 1951 she served on Ocean Station Uncle, and the following year, August to September, she served on Ocean Station Uncle. Later in 1952, from November to December, she served on Ocean Station Nan. In April to May 1953, Taney served on Ocean Station Victor, and in June of that year she served on Ocean Station Victor. From 4 to the 25th of October 1953 she served on Ocean Station Uncle, and from June to July 1954 she served on Ocean Station Nan. In November October of that same year she again served on Ocean Station Nan. In March and April and again in June and July 1956 she served on Ocean Station November. She again served on Ocean Station November from January to February, June to July, and October to November 1957, and from February to March and August 1958. She served on Ocean Station Romeo from October to November 1958. She served on Ocean Station November from December 1958 to January 1959, May to June, and October to November 1959. The Taney served on Ocean Station November in March and April 1960. A unique honor occurred on the 27th of April 1960 when Taney, as the senior U.S. ship present, hosted French President Charles de Gaulle on his tour of San Francisco Bay. She then served on Ocean Station November in August 1960. She served again on Ocean Station November in January and then from May to June 1961, 1965–66. On the 1st of May 1965 the Treasury-class vessels were redesignated as high-endurance cutters or WHEC. This designation indicated a multi-mission ship able to operate at sea for 30 to 45 days without support, and Taney was then reclassified as WHEC-37. In March 1965 she conducted an Alaskan patrol, and on the 29th of March she successfully fought a fire on board the disabled fishing vessel Glacier Bear 15 miles south of Cape Fairweather and then towed her to safety. In May 1965, off Northern California, she kept the Soviet refrigerator ship Chernyakovsk under close surveillance. In 1966, Taney undertook a 90-day double Victor cruise. She departed Alameda on the 26th of August and arrived at Pearl Harbor on the 1st of September, where she refueled before steaming to Honolulu, mooring at berth 8. She departed Honolulu on the 3rd of September en route Ocean Station Victor via Midway Island, arriving at the latter on the 6th of September, departing the same day. On the 8th of September 1966, Taney crossed the 180th meridian and then arrived at Ocean Station Victor on the 11th of September, relieving USCGC Chautauqua. She served on Victor until relieved by USCGC Winnebago on the 1st of October, then steamed towards Yokosuka, Japan. Here the crew enjoyed liberty before again heading back to the Ocean Station. She arrived at Victor on the 22nd of October, relieving Winnebago. On the 4th of November, Typhoon Marie passed close aboard Taney, with winds gusting close to 70 knots, but she weathered the storm without damage. On the 12th of November 1966, Taney was relieved again by Winnebago and she then steamed to Midway Island to refuel before heading back to Alameda, arriving there on the 20th of November, 1968 to 71. The Taney served on Ocean Station November from 7 to the 28th of January, the 18th of February to the 10th of March, the 21st of April to the 12th of May, and the 27th of October to the 17th of November 1968. Her final assignment to Ocean Station November was from the 19th of January to the 9th of February 1969. She was then ordered for duty with Coast Guard Squadron 3, which was supporting the Navy's Operation Market Time patrols off the coast of Vietnam. The Taney served a 10-month tour of duty, providing naval gunfire support and preventing enemy infiltration along the coastal routes used by the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese forces. She departed U.S. waters in April 1969 and arrived in theater on the 14th of May 1969, and she served in the area until the 31st of January 1970. During her tour of duty, Taney steamed for over 52,000 miles and inspected over 1,000 vessels. She participated in dozens of naval gunfire support missions, firing more than 3,400 5-inch shells at Viet Cong positions. Her medical staff also treated over 6,000 Vietnamese villages. For her service, the government of the Republic of Vietnam awarded Taney the Vietnam Gallantry Cross with Palm and the Vietnam Civil Actions Medal with Palm. After departing Vietnamese waters, she arrived at Alameda in February 1970. After returning to U.S. waters, she once again began serving on ocean stations. From the 30th of August to the 20th of September 1970 and from 3 to the 24th of January 1971 she served on Ocean Station November. For the 28th of March to 18 and the 9th of April to the 30th of May 1971 she served on Ocean Station Victor. She served on Ocean Station November from the 22nd of August to the 12th of September and again from the 24th of October to the 14th of November 1971, 1972 to 86. In February 1972 Taney was shifted back to the East Coast and was homeported at Norfolk. From 13 to the 22nd of October 1972 she served on Ocean Station Hotel. For the 28th of October to the 17th of November 1972 she served on Ocean Station Delta. For the 26th of January to the 15th of February and the 17th of April to the 7th of May 1973 she served on Ocean Station Bravo. As the ocean stations were decommissioned during the early 1970s due to advances in radar and electronic navigation, Taney was assigned exclusively to the only station still operational, Ocean Station Hotel off the coasts of Maryland and Virginia. Fitted with a special storm tracking antenna housed in a distinctive bulbous dome fitted atop her pilot house, Taney deployed 7 times yearly, conducting 21 deployments 200 miles off the coast. This last ocean station had been established to track storms threatening the Middle States on the East Coast, which had often struck without warning. Eventually, the use of more sophisticated storm tracking satellites and radars rendered the station obsolete. Hence, Ocean Station Hotel was closed down in 1977 and the Taney gained the distinction of being the last Coast Guard cutter to serve on an ocean station. The mid-1970s were a period of transition for the Coast Guard with the passage of the Fisheries Conservation and Management Act and the nation's shift towards increased interdiction of narcotics smugglers. These operations called for offshore patrols of up to 3 weeks. From September 1976 through her decommissioning she was stationed at Portsmouth, Virginia and began law enforcement and search and rescue patrols. In December 1976 she assisted the sailboat Capella 200 miles off New York. In December 1979 Taney helped seize the FV Nida for narcotics violations. On the 15th of January 1980 she seized the MV Amila Isle 425 miles east of Fort Pierce, Florida, carrying 4 tons of contraband. In December 1980 she seized the British-flagged MV Party Doll which was carrying 10 tons of contraband. Despite being the long arm of the law at sea, she continued in her traditional Coast Guard humanitarian mission of search and rescue as well. On the 16th of November 1982 she rescued 7 from the disabled Ketch Klawasa off the coast of North Carolina and rescued 19 migrants off the sailboat Apre-Dini. In May 1985 she assisted the disabled FV Northwind 300 miles off New York. She also continued nabbing drug smugglers. On the 30th of September 1984, she seized the P.C. Thriller in the Yucatan Channel, carrying 1,000 pounds of marijuana. Her final bust occurred on the 4th of October 1985 when she seized the MVC Mayday, which was towing a barge that carried 160 tons of marijuana 300 miles off Virginia. Fate. She was formally decommissioned on the 7th of December 1986 and turned over to the city of Baltimore, Maryland, for use as a museum ship. Over her distinguished career, Taney received 3 battle stars for World War II service and numerous theater ribbons for service in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. In 1988, the USCGC Taney, structure number 88,001,826, was added to the National Register of Historic Places. She was designated a National Historic Landmark on the same day. The Taney is located in the historic Baltimore Inner Harbor as part of the Historic Ships in Baltimore collection. Taney is included in the Baltimore National Heritage Area. Liberty ship Roger B.Taney was also named for the Chief Justice. She was laid down at the Bethlehem Fairfield Shipyard at Baltimore, Maryland on the 21st of June 1941 and launched the 6th of December 1941. She was commissioned as a U.S. Army transport on the 9th of February 1942. On the 2nd of July 1943 she was torpedoed in the South Atlantic, and 3 crew members died. Awards: Coast Guard Meritorious Unit Commendation, Navy Meritorious Unit Commendation, American Defense Service Medal, American Campaign Medal, European African Middle Eastern Campaign Medal with 1 battle star, Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal with 2 battle stars, World War II Victory Medal, Navy Occupation Service Medal with Asia clasp, National Defense Service Medal with 1 service star, Korean Service Medal, Vietnam Service Medal with 3 campaign stars, Humanitarian Service Medal, Vietnam Gallantry Cross with Palm, Vietnam Civil Actions Medal with Palm, United Nations Career Medal, Republic of Vietnam Campaign Medal. In popular culture, Taney is the subject of a 1/300th plastic-scale model kit by Revell, released to the market in 1984.